Stephanie, take a look behind me. This is pure devastation. Now, I'm told many people who live in this area own homes here, and one of the homeowners was actually able to tell me he's lived here for about 11 years, and just looking at this pure devastation is hard for him to comprehend.
We have team coverage for you tonight in the downtown shooting. Charmaine, Nero, Marcy Manley, and Jesse Tuno are all working several different angles from the story because there are many of them. Let's begin our coverage with Charmaine Nero, who spoke to Violet Brazil, one of the victims of the shooting over the weekend.
Exactly, Bob. Now, Violet tells me she was inside the club near an exit when shots rang out. That's when she ran to a nearby back door, ran down these steps before frantically running to her car and realizing she had been shot. It's about 1.5 miles back to the nearest homes, but for the 3 families that live on this private road, the only way to get across is over this board. In the surveillance footage, you can actually see the inmates forming a human pyramid to grab what Pulaski County Jail investigators say is a synthetic drug called K2, normally found in small packets. They say it's been a huge problem in the county jail since last July. I spoke to several people earlier today, some saying they heard that gunshot and a loud boom from that car crashing into the wall. Now, I'm actually going to step out of the shot, but you can take a look and see the damage from that accident that claimed the life of a 31-year-old man. That's right, Ashley. Right now, they're not sure how they're going to fix the collapsed bridge, but homeowners say they're left stranded without a way to drive across. Exactly, Stephanie. Nakia Baker says seeing her daughter covered in blood is the worst moment of her life. But worse than that, having to tell her granddaughter that her mother had been shot.
But she decided she wanted to go to this concert, and all that could have changed in the blink of an eye.
Nakia Baker is no stranger to violence in Little Rock.
I came through an area where we were drive-by shootings and the whole 9.
It hit a little too close to home when she got a phone call last night from one of her daughters.
We were going to have to run up to the hospital because my daughter had been shot.
Frantically, Nakia drove to Power Ultra Lounge.
And it was a war zone by the time we got there.
2 agonizing hours later.
And when we found her, she was covered in blood, her clothes. Of course, she didn't have on any shoes.
21-year-old Brinley Cunningham was in the front row when shots rang out.
This morning, I could have possibly had to try to sit down and explain to my grandbaby why her mother wasn't coming home. You know, this is unreal.
Her daughter describes the scene as bullets coming from the stage. She remembers jumping over what she thought were dead bodies.
Innocent people. Those people, when they went in there last night, they had no idea that they were going to come out of there in ambulances.
She's thankful she won't have to explain to her grandbaby her mother is gone.
Again, I could have lost my child last night. You know, I'm so thankful to God that I didn't.
Suzanne Ritchie has known death row inmate Marcel Williams since he was 15 years old. He was a student in her North Little Rock class, and since then she's made it her priority to speak about his troubled upbringing.
And Marcel said, oh, we've got to get a picture.
Suzanne Ritchie recalls the first time she met death row inmate Marcel Williams.
This big man I'm giving a hug to was still inside a little 15-year-old boy to me.
Back then, he was an 8th grade student at Ridge Road Junior High School in North Little Rock. Ritchie, his teacher.
When you see a child who's been, you can tell there's neglect when you never have food, never has a lunch, and you know, never had a coat on when it was freezing cold, and had the same dirty clothes on for weeks at a time.
Williams, who is one of the inmates scheduled to be executed on Monday for the murder of Stacey Erickson, was in and out of jail as a teen. She says his family neglected him, often leaving him homeless without a place to stay.
They put him in adult prison and said that boy's 16 years old. He's a child still.
Ritchie says Williams' story was one she could never forget.
Walk in the moccasins of a child whose mother poured boiling water on him. Walk in the moccasins of a child who was never required to go to school. Walk in the moccasins of a child who was put in an adult prison when he was 16.
Through the frequent prison visits,
I mourn for Stacey Erickson's family too.
Last words she's holding on to.
Ms. Ritchie, I pray for her family and I pray for everybody.
And a promise to continue sharing the story of one of her troubled students. even long after he's gone.
Would he like to live? Would he like to continue to have a life just like everybody would? Yes, he would. But I think he is going to accept whatever happens to him, where everything is in God's hands now.
Now, Williams is currently in the Cummins unit. He is scheduled to be executed Monday night, along with death row inmate Jack Jones. Shannon, back to you.
All right.
I'm alive. My back isn't broken. I can move.
77-year-old Virginia Weaver recalls the feeling she had right before last week's storms left her injured without a home.
Something was bothering me, but I just couldn't put it together.
Virginia says she heard loud noises, thinking it was just a train passing by, but soon realized it was strong winds battering her mobile home.
I put my supper down and I went to the bathroom and got in the tub and put my head under the shower chair that was sitting there.
Moments later, a glass from a nearby window broke, leaving Virginia with a scar across her face.
There's no sound in the world like listening to a trailer house come apart. The noises that you hear, you can't even think about it.
Another object hit her before she remembers passing out.
When I woke up, I was laying on the ground on the other side of that ditch. It started pouring down rain, just like the heavens just opened up.
Virginia was just one of several people in White County left injured from the storm. After she was rescued, she says her family has gone back to her home, salvaging what's left.
The only thing I really care about is my photos and my family history that I worked so hard on.
Even with a broken wrist and a few broken bones.
I said, wow, I'm lucky. God had his hand on me.
Virginia says she believes there is a reason she's still alive to tell her story.
I was supposed to go through this. God had a message to send out.
Take a look behind me. This is pure devastation. Now, I'm told many people who live in this area own homes here, and one of the homeowners was actually able to tell me he's lived here for about 11 years, and just looking at this pure devastation is hard for him to comprehend.
It's still sinking in.
Monty Dillick looks at what's left of his dream home after a Saturday night fire.
Obviously, the house is completely gone.
Dillick was home when a neighbor told him about the blaze.
And so we tried to spray it down, but the heat was so intense. And at 9:54, we called 911 and said, we can't control this, it's out of control.
On what was supposed to be a joyous holiday weekend.
It's total devastation. It was amazing how fast the fire took off.
Now leaving 4 homeowners in this community in total shock.
It was solid wood, and once it caught on fire and all the decks, there was nothing to stop it.
Neighbors say flames could be seen as far as a nearby bypass. Footage shows just how intense this fire was.
Everything from the house itself to furniture, vehicles.
A weekend to celebrate stars and stripes. Dillick is thankful no one was hurt.
One, thanking the Lord that nothing happened.
Even after the fire, he plans to stay in the place he calls home.
Time will tell, but that's probably what my plan is, to rebuild and move, just keep moving forward.
A green oasis hidden in plain sight.
I've been gardening in this garden for 13 years.
Just blocks away.
It's in waves, in pockets, in certain sections of certain streets.
From the scene of a double shooting last Sunday that left 2 16-year-olds injured.
Try to head off, prevent some of the violence that we sometimes see spark out.
With roughly 42 aggravated assaults reported since the beginning of the year, Debbie Preston, a longtime Oak Forest homeowner, says the violence doesn't define her neighborhood.
I've never been threatened, never felt threatened.
There have been 112 aggravated assaults in Little Rock this year alone. Altogether, 17 homicides and 60 shootings.
We are aware of that. We are trying to address that logistically from putting in the proper amount of resources.
Little Rock police say violent crime in downtown areas are up compared to this time last year.
We're busy. We're still shorthanded. We're trying to get those numbers back to where they need to be.
It's a wonderful neighborhood.
Like this community garden.
By building the garden, I feel that you're planting roots.
Preston is hoping the beauty isn't overshadowed by the violence.
So that people can see the neighborhood the way I remember it, the way it still is.